While we can give you the Neuralink that will restore the sight you lost in that tragic illness you had as a baby, has caused you to be blind your whole life, the Neuralink, in order for you to afford it, will display an ad for Crunchy Time toilet paper. The toilet paper that crunches. So would you like to proceed with that? This is the vast meridian from Trackmania 2. An electronic sounding song. This week's theme is electronica, EDM, electronic music. I'd wager that 95% of video game music is electronically based. I mean, it's all electronic, it's all been recorded, it's being played electronically, but you know what I mean. I'm not going to say, well, if you record an acoustic guitar, that's an electronic signal. Go fuck yourself. Electronic music. You know when you hear it. I'd say this one is. You know, the drums are electronic. It's all synthy based. Synth music. Did you play it on a keyboard? Yeah. Was there a MIDI roll involved? Alright. That's pretty good, okay. Our first official track from Tekken 3. That's right. It's Gunjack, composed by the Namco sound team. No credit there. Chosen by Kris. Gunjack. That's really cool. You know, when you think of like kind of where the kick and the snare are, not necessarily in this part, but let's take it back to the beginning. You know, just sort of like sort of like a slower to mid-tempo, and I think it really gives the weight of Jack. This is an annoyingly long intro. It's really not in a hurry. Gunjack's a big guy. I like how the kick and the snare almost have this like a hydraulic is powering them. The way Gunjack seems like he's a... Well, in Tekken 3, I mean, he looks more, you know, robotic. I can't remember. Is he a robot man? He doesn't look like a robot man there. Maybe the thing is he's like using it as a sort of like steroids in a way. So 210 android takes off into the air. Yeah. So he's an android. He's like Dolph Lundgren. Cyborg. I like all the little kind of beep. You know, those like bloops and beeps. It does sound like a computer sort of working its way through. A computer that thinks it's alive in a way. I just like how laid back it is too. You know, Gunjack is not going to be... He's not going to have any anxiety, you know. Oh, I love the way he wakes up. He's just a killing machine, you know. He's like the Terminator. Our next track is from Eve Burst Error. This is a game put out on the PC 98 in 1995. The track is called Hacking, composed by Ryu Takami, and chosen by Rudi. Similar. I can really solve the cases when I let my breasts feel the air of the case. It's so hot in these Japanese offices. Man, really nice track. It's yeah, it does have that sort of kind of like deliberate, careful, precise feel to it. You know, like you're pouring through a lot of data on your computer, like she is. Oh, actually have gotta see the game in action. I just love the synth instruments they've used and just the mood they've created. You just have that same bass note and actually pretty similar high note going, right? And then it finally breaks the tension, goes down there, but then goes to like a really unsure chromatic note there. That's cool. Because like for most of the time, you just have this bass line. And then you have the same high notes at the top there. And just stays there forever and lets everything kind of build around it. And then finally goes into that F there. But it doesn't go up to, you know, like a G or anything, just F, 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 F sharp, up just one note. So that gives it a lot of unease and tension. Pretty cool. Really nice. You know, you think of... Yeah. It's just such a good kind of like productive thinking, tension-filled. It's perfect. Perfect for solving a case. Next up we have from Sonic 3D Blast, released on the Sega Saturn 1996. Panic Puppet Zone Act 2, composed by Richard Jacques and chosen by our Claudio. really cool piece of 90s dance music. It's actually, I mean, so it came out on the Saturn, so probably would have come out, I guess, like 96 or something? 96, 97? PlayStation was 94. 94, 95, so yeah, the Saturn was probably around there. It's just nice. It's using those Roland 909 kind of like hi-hats and some claps and stuff, and it does the same thing where it's got these sort of like constant droning notes. It doesn't change chords there at all. Which, what was my point there? Oh, which then lets you have these sort of like really, these really like ambiguous chords, kind of these sort of very like jazz fusion-y chords, a lot of extensions, chords with a lot of extra notes, just sort of dancing around, laying a cool texture with this like super riddled out beat. Just focus, like, I can focus now. I can focus. I'm gonna grind my teeth until I finish writing this paper. It does have a bit of a hauntingness to it, doesn't it? Pretty cool. From the Puppet Zone. Panic Puppet Zone. Yeah, let's have a look, see if we can find that. Actually, Sonic 3D Blast was on the Genesis, not the Saturn. Oh, it was on both. Oh god, I'm sure that Genesis version was just great. This is the OST again. Give me a walkthrough, baby. Here we go. Sonic 3D Blast, Panic Puppet Act 2. This is Sonic 3D and 2D. Is this on the Saturn? I think we were in the Panic Puppet Zone. Yeah, I didn't see any puppets. I think they just wanted, like, the double P. And they couldn't say pee-pee, because pee-pee is a dirty word. Next up, from Super Smash Brothers Melee. This is Break the Target's theme, composed by Hirokazu Ando, Tadashi Ikegami, Shogo Sakai, Takuto Kitsuta, and chosen by Big Boss Steve. It starts off and you're thinking like, oh, it's just going to be, you know, like a generic kind of electronica thing. But then you get that cool kind of jazzy, funky, like really fast piano, and then that like kind of Stratocaster guitar. Yeah, playful yet oddly elegant, for sure. And then these like really nice kind of descending chords. I love that, it's like piano chord riff. Almost sounds like Mortal Kombat. Next up, we have a track from PESTERQUEST. This is Vriska's theme by Nucleose Rodriguez, chosen by Mr. Frikkio. It does kind of seem like it's slowly kind of getting. This is the release from Homestruck, so a lot of bass, which to me sounds more like an actual bass guitar being played. Just the way it sounds like you're actually playing a bass and not just playing keys. And then it also sounds like guitar too. So I would say the drums feel electronic with the sort of like garage type drum machine where you have like. Because originally, when people were making these garage drum beats, you know, like it was actually like the drum machine couldn't properly play it at the right tempo, so it would almost like speed up and slow down because of all the crazy snare hits people were putting in, and it gave it this this like natural kind of drift, which was a bit like dreamy feeling, and it was just based on a limitation on the hardware at the time. And then now you can replicate that with newer drum machines. And it's basically created like entire grooves and stuff. But yeah, thanks, Chris. It's the first time I've done it as a playlist, so that's the danger of that. Yeah, it's a very, very jammy track, but even though it's super jammy, I find the main melody of it is quite memorable. Interesting stuff. But yeah, this anytime I see this kind of art, I get a little worried, like, oh boy. It's going to be like a furry orgy or something. But no, it ends up just being about murder. But it seemed like it was hinting at sex when they were talking about pogo rides and stuff. Next up from Transistor, there's some electrical talk for you. This is Traces by the great Darren Korb, chosen by the even greater Chris. Oh, glitchy. Yeah. part here, it always reminds me of how when you're playing bass and chord instruments, well, any instrument, when you stop the note is just as important as when you start the note. The way it goes, blah, blah. Yeah, especially with bass and like big things that have a lot of sustain. You know, that's a Rhodes. Sounds like a Rhodes piano. It's cool. You know. I was sort of talking about the one before. PESTERQUEST, and I was like, it sounded less electronic to me because it had a bit of real bass and like maybe some guitar. This actually has like Fender Rhodes, which I think of as like an organic instrument. It's an electric piano, but it's still a piano. Like there's still mallets and things being hit inside there. I mean, you can play a Fender Rhodes electric piano not plugged in, and it still makes an acoustic sound. And this has like just some electric guitar again, which, I guess I'm sounding a bit like a hypocrite, but for some reason it's like the way they play them makes them sound like they've been sampled and kind of chopped up. So, and I think it's kind of the whole point of like, that's a huge feature of electronic music, is the ability to sample and chop things up and make it different. So, here. Yeah, the drums are really the star and the focus and just like the overall kind of vibe and that rhythm. And that groove. Sometimes I say two things, and I'm not really sure which one is the better one, or it could be even redundantly saying two of the exact same things. Next up, from the great Trackmania 2 soundtrack, Trackmania 2 Stadium, released in 2013. Weird year for games, isn't it? This is Dashboard, composed by Professor Kliq, chosen by Rudi. the Trackmania 2 tracks we've heard, they have this interesting feel where they have a very steady beat because the race is always moving forward. And they kind of like introduce different instruments, and what they do is they kind of let them all have a little piece. You know, it's a little bit like, you know, they all kind of get their shine, and that to me is like this, you're neck and neck racing, and then every once in a while, it'll just kind of stop and go. Boom, you'll have one instrument allowed to just like really launch out with like a big extended note, and to me that's sort of like, you know, you hit the turn and you're just pulling ahead of people. Just what an incredible way to bring the act of racing to life in your ears. On the one hand, I'd rather have a race car in my ear than like bugs or maggots, which are disgusting. Race car seems so much less disgusting to have in my ear. But if I had to worry about what was my body going to like absorb, I guess the organic matter would break down easier. Probably less risk of an infection than if you had a race car in your ear. Next up, from Streets of Rage 4, released in 2021, this is Aerial Justice, composed by T. Lopes, chosen by Claudio. Man, I mean, I know T. Lopes often takes on some tough challenges, like T. Lopes tends to do a lot of nostalgic remakes, that kind of thing. Did the soundtrack for Sonic Mania, I believe. And what was the other one? Streets of Rage remake, Ninja Turtles. And when you, especially with Streets of Rage, there were so many amazing things done on the Streets of Rage soundtrack. Just the real, one of the greatest all-time implementations of what the Sega Genesis sound hardware could do. So picking the right sounds and programming them correctly to give you, to make it just sound lush, you know, it doesn't sound harsh. And like the Genesis at its worst is a lot of like really harsh sounds. There's always that kind of like percussive element and like really kind of thin, kind of like bing, 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 bing. It's almost like very sound effecty in a way. But you know, in Streets of Rage, he just made it so like soft, and it just tapped into the dance music of the time, and you know, from the tones to the writing, it was perfect. So T. Lopes has to try to, you're doing a remake of Streets of Rage, not a remake, you're doing a sequel. So you're trying to keep what was great and loved about the original, but without copying it and not having it just be a pale imitation. So I think, I mean, it's still like dancey and rock. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near as kind of jazzy as the original Streets of Rage soundtrack. This is more rock and straight ahead. Big kind of like epic 80s solos. It's a lot more like kind of 80s and 2000s than the 90s. But it's cool. I like that kind of, because to me it sounds like punching combinations. And, you know, just like kind of rapid fire and then punching through. Works really well. Doesn't this one also kind of almost look like a fan game that's going to get a bit not safe for work? Anyway, this is Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. This is Penny's battle theme, or maybe Penne, named after the pasta. Composer Teruo Taniguchi, chosen by Big Man Steve. You up. Penny's gonna fuck you up. Penny's gonna fuck you up. Oh, what's up, okay? What was it? There was a Pokemon game that had that. Had some Pokemon track I'd heard where it had a real kind of like world feeling, and I think it was actually from the Pokken fighting game, the crossover with Tekken. That is some full-on music. That is really good for like a bullet hell. I mean, it just sounds like an unbelievable hailstorm of attacks have been sent your way. Yeah, Pokken tournament. That's it. Normally, this kind of music I hate because it can be very obnoxious, but this was really nicely balanced. An epic melody that could really keep up with what it was doing. Changed it up, had some dynamics. It wasn't just all. It's a really, really well composed track. Man, you hear this boss theme, start playing, and you go, "Oh shit! Do I have enough secret Pokeballs? I don't know. I don't know what you need." Next up, from Hopester, the Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, composed by Masafumi Takara. This is chosen by Mr. Frikkio. Really nice, kind of long and winding chord progression. Decent kind of dynamics that really build up, and then very sort of using the genre's tropes of this type of electronica of just having this like kind of trancy parts that let you build to the next one. Big piano melodies, just building to the next drop. It's always about the next drop with these people. Alright, from the oddly sensual Digimon Cyber Sleuth, we have SimCity 4. This is Electric City, composed by Jerry Martin and chosen by Kris. Oh yeah. Give me a saxophone. Yeah, this is like pretty high energy and epic and dramatic for SimCity. I mean, a building game, you usually want to have music that, although it's inspiring, you need it to be played on a loop for many hours. These are games that unfold very, very slowly. But as you can see, this track is called Electric City, so I would assume that this is very late in the game, and maybe you have like you've reached like a cyberpunk time of the city. You know, you've just launched, like everyone can teleport to work. There's replicators for food. Earl Grey. Hot. Ooh. Uh-oh, we got more of these girls. This is from Mega Dimension Neptunia 7, I think. It's a V-22. V-II. Released in 2015 on the PS4. Looks like a remake of something. Or maybe just a long-running cheap anime series. This track is Voltage, composed by Takeshi Toriumi, chosen by Rudi. Yeah, I like this a lot. Actually, I mean, it's got a very dramatic, epic chord progression that I'm usually a sucker for. But I just like the way that it ebbs and flows, and like Chris is saying, and like a lot of electronic tracks usually, because they're so full on, they have to break down again and to build back up. It's all about the drop and all about like getting people up to that state, but you know, over 3 to 4 hours. You can't just do that for hours straight. Yeah, the guitar does sound like an anthem. Especially right here when it first comes in. Just the way that it's so like kind of heroic and positive. Our country does this and does that and does this. We are #1 in shearing sheep. Alright, let's take it back. way back to Donkey Kong Country in 1994, to be exact, on the SNES. What a big game this was. Composed by the legendary David Wise. This is Fear Factory, chosen by Claudio. So much David Wise is doing here on the Super Nintendo. Just that like steady pulsing rhythm with the accents to give it a dance feel, and like just those like shimmering ambient chords, and then he still got his kind of, you know, little things fluttering to the surface. And like the previous electronica style tracks, this one has a breakdown just like the other ones had. Interestingly, to me anyway, I stole that riff for one of my songs. The one where it breaks down and just goes really make way for it. So that part there. You shot me. I just slowed it way down. This is one of my songs. When you do, you know all of my secrets. So it's ba, 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 ba. You know all of my secrets. You've got all. I think I even do hey mom, how are ya? I think I even got a solo in here where it does that too. Anyway, there's a song where I ripped off David Wise. Still remember recording that on my Epiphone Casino, the John Lennon guitar, with vintage Seymour Duncan Antiquity pickups in there. Wound to be sounding as old as possible through my little Fender Blues Jr. Recorded that when I lived in Victoria. Next up, from Sonic Riders, this is the Sega Carnival stage theme composed by Fumie Kumatani. like this track. That big heavy dance beat behind it is like really tastefully done. It's like a bit of elegance to it. You know, it doesn't get annoying. It doesn't get on your nerves. It's really fun. A lot of kind of like sloping kind of the way the song is sort of paced out. You know, little slopes down and then up, and little kind of blasts of just like it perfectly matches what Sakai's doing in this game, which is a difficult thing to do, especially while still sounding so beautiful, even with these like kind of gloopy glop electronic sounds around it. I think it's because the melody notes are very like, natural and pretty. Almost sound like they played on a little flute. Next up, from the bright green hills of Sonic, we are going into the land of Armored Core. From Software's Armored Core, deep into their original music files, locked away in those Sony CDRs. This is track 4, Shape Memory Alloys, chosen by Mr. Frikkio. A really good point, Horky, as Armored Core makes a big comeback. A series that was very impressive on the original PlayStation and actually had a long run before Dark Souls came in and just totally took over everything From Software was doing for the next 10 years. So now we're getting more Armored Core. Is it going to be fun still? Is it going to have this kind of I mean, it was a product of the time, I think, and them trying to sound futuristic, which is ironic because then ends up sounding dated to a certain time. But there's a futuristic vibe of the late 90s, and I would love to hear something kind of dancey and fun. Like, you know, I know From Software games are so good. I think there's so much detail in them, and they can be so rewarding, and they're some of the best games ever made, and they really should just. If anybody takes a lesson from a From Software game or a Dark Souls game, don't just directly steal things like the flasks or, you know, enemies coming back. Just steal from them the idea that you need to have scope and scale. You know, Dark Souls games are pretty because of the art direction, the art style, but they're not, you know, technically impressive. They're not showing a lot of particles and, you know, all this fucking bullshit. They know they need to have a big world with lots of characters, so they just scale it a bit down. If more game developers did that and understood what are you actually trying to accomplish, you know, something that's impressive to Digital Foundry or something that will stand the test of time and be impressive now and impressive later. Great track. Boom, boom, boom. It's really got that kind of like 90 everybody dance now, Dance Mix 95 kind of feel. I really like the kick drum is really kind of brutal. And it's kind of hard to pick out. It's like the kick drums are sort of coming from this like machine gun pulsing, you know? It's like right, more than you think. Just itch in the chest. You're not sure when they're gonna come, but it's consistent. Yeah, to finish my thought about Armored Core was that I was saying From Software games I love the way they look and you know, the achievement of them, but they're, you know, they're hard. They're so hard. That's the point. That's what makes it rewarding. Yes, I know. And I also complain when things are too easy, so I'm just a hypocrite who needs to get good. But I would really like it if Armored Core wasn't insanely difficult. Because that would make me want to return to it. I had so much fun with Sekiro. I don't want to return to it. Or Dark Souls. Maybe just to have a wander. I wouldn't mind like a free roam, you know? Exploration VR mode. That would be fun. Go sightseeing. But yeah, beat it once. Okay, put it away. Done. Alright, from Tesla Force. This is Science vs. Madness. Composed by Sotiris Kremiadius and Kiko Graphomet. Chosen by Kris. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, similar to the Gunjack theme that we started with from Tekken 3, it's all about the tempo, right? It's like when they were composing musical themes for the wrestlers, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, you know, they picked tempos that matched speed. They would kind of march to the ring, and this has just got... I mean, it's just... It sounds like a giant tech, a big mech just mowing things down. And that seems to be what you do in this game. I mean, it's like powerful, but has a swagger, and it's not worried about anything. I would say it almost sounds a bit more like metal, like really light metal, heavy rock to me than electronic, other than there's some synth stuff, and the drums sound, you know, programmed. But it's sort of like an electronic on metal hybrid. Next up from Hotline Miami 2, wrong number, released in 2015. This is The Way Home, composed by Magic Sword, chosen by Rudi. the track is called The Way Home, right? So you finally, you've gone through the madness and the blood and the guts and the bullets, and this is the end. Another one with a slow, confident swagger to it. This is done in a waltz time. Feels kind of like a 6/8 1. What I like is that it usually has the chord change on the 1. Boom. Boom. But right there, it changes twice as fast. Right there, which kind of gives it, because you're so used to the floatiness and the weight of changing the chord on. Bum, 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 bum. Boom. And then when it switches it up like that and doubles it, it's sort of like, ooh, feels like you've just been whipped around a corner, which, you know, this game is all about really fast reaction times, reflexes, just dealing with a situation that is developing organically around you. You know, everybody dies in one shot. What an amazing concept for a game. When I was still not totally into games, and I had a PS3 kicking around, and I just moved out to Toronto with Stella, and she was introducing me to some of her family's friends, and met a guy that was also into video games, and he was following games a lot closer than I was, so he introduced me to this game. I remember buying it on the PSN store and just having so much fun with it, because it's just such a brilliant idea. You know, you can play it for a few seconds, you can play it for a few hours. Like, actually has a good story. It's like very kind of psychedelic, mind-bending kind of story, and it just really fits what you're doing in that game so well. Like, incredible soundtrack, really kicking off that whole 80s craze that it feels like we're still in now. Our next one is from Sonic Mania, also composed by T. Lopes. This is Metallic Madness, chosen by Claudio. I love that snare. Machine gun snare. No ghost. You know what? That rap actually sounds cool. That's how cool I am. So old right now. Cool rap. Hip hoppers. What a great, fun, swanky, you know, speedy. I love that, like, really dirty snare drum. Just kind of, and it has that same kind of garage drum beat, you know, like that we were talking about earlier with the drum beats, where the snare is programmed so fast that it's speeding up and slowing down. I love that kind of nice big chords, kind of give you the direction of like looking left to right. A lot of speed, a lot of precision, just like good shredding, good composition. I mean, it's a really fun track to listen to. Our last track of the day from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This is the Electrodrome. Get that right, stage theme, composed by Ryo Magamatsu, Atsuko Asahi, Shiho Fuji, and Yasuaki Iwata. a really fun sound. Japanese kind of fusion-y, electronic-ish. Very, very, like, disco, dancey beat with that bass and the... But it gives it a really kind of, like, consistent, mechanical energy to it, you know? It's like, look, high energy, it's like movement, constantly moving forward with like, a swanky flair of the disco era, but also... Just feel the machine doing it. Just like big kind of... I don't know, the track is funny. It just sort of... it just sounds like a big octopus. Just kind of wiping itself over. It's like precise at the same time, but also it just feels like it's just... It feels like it's overflowing from itself from one note to note. It's a big sound. It's nice. Really masterful production on it. I like it. Well, that's going to do it for this week. If you want to join in the fun, check out the video on YouTube. We upload a much higher quality and edited down version of the YouTube video onto the YouTube channel. It's not like crazy edits. It's not like a 1-minute compilation or anything. It's just me usually pausing. You can tell in between each track. And then I talk a little bullshit on the stream. And then I hit recording, you know, unpause, which starts the recording. And then I'm all Mr. Official. So yeah, this was a great suggestion by the great Kris. And if you want to be a part of this, check out the description. There'll be a link to our Discord. If there isn't a link to the Discord, just comment and I will fucking give you one. I'll copy and paste it to you. It'll feel real special. Because you are. Because we all are. But that doesn't make you special if we're all special. No. Anyways, this recording is now over.